Hi, everyone. Welcome to Breaking the Ceiling, a show where we talk about the entrepreneurs, the brands they've built, the struggles they've gone through, and the successes they've become. Today, I have somebody who has been an icon in the industry. She personifies versatility. She has worn several hats in her career. She is a law graduate from University College London. She's a bona fide chartered accountant and a proud owner of one of the finest dining restaurants in Mumbai, The Table. Please welcome Gauri Devidayal. Hey, Gauri, nice to have you here. Thank you for taking your time. This is going to be fun.
Hey, thanks, Ashwin. It's great to be here, and that intro has put a little bit of pressure on, but but thank you.
So, Gauri, what I want to know is, I want to know the Gauri before the table. What's your journey? What's your journey been like?
Like you mentioned in the intro, I'm a law graduate, and I read law at university in London, and it was virtually impossible at that point to get a job with a law firm. It was a time when they were not doling out work permits, and so I actually accidentally did an internship at PwC while I was at college, and in their tax team, and I ended up loving it. So I know nerd and geek and complete antithesis to what I'm doing right now, but I really loved it, and I found that it was this perfect combination of law and math, which I loved. And so I was like, you know what, this is actually what I want to do. And so after I graduated, like you mentioned earlier, I then went on to do my chartered accountancy in England with PwC. And I was there for a good 5 years working with them after graduating. But at some point, I think the English weather just got to me, and I was like, I'm kind of done with this. I'm gonna head back to Bombay, and it was actually great timing because I moved back to India in December 2007, just before the madness of 2008's financial crisis. But I continued to work with PwC in Bombay. And this is around the time I met my husband, now husband Jay, and then I continued as a tax consultant for the next 3 years, but that's when the idea of the restaurant started bubbling, and I thought I was going to watch it from afar while he did his thing, but yeah, that turned out to be a different story altogether.
So it was his idea to start the table, and you were supposed to be somebody who kind of sort of was that the
Completely. I was very happy doing my day job, and but I mean, so he just moved back from San Francisco back to Bombay, and I think, and he's a techie, so like neither of us have any hospitality background whatsoever, and and I'm kind of this trained lawyer, auditor, sort of, very like like everything, planned makes sense, everything needs to make sense. He's completely the opposite. He has to kind of deep dive into something that makes no sense. And I mean, jokes apart, I think he just come back from a city where food is so important, and it's really one of the sort of front runners in the whole food industry and the restaurant business. And I think when coming back to Bombay, where we felt that this was back in 2008, where there was like a huge gap in the whole sort of what was available to diners at that point. And I think coming from something which was kind of considered like a mecca of food to Bombay back in 2008, the sort of the gap was kind of, it was a glaring sort of big hole. And he's always, I think a lot of guys go through this midlife crisis of wanting to have a restaurant, and
me
I
too.
thought it would be a phase, and it would just pass on its own magically. That didn't happen, and and then the idea kept sort of brewing, and he started looking at spaces, and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to be like a good sort of pillar of support, and not kind of bash his ideas right from the get. But then one thing led to another, and then he was like, I think I found a space, and I was like, look, I'll help you with reviewing documents, I'll help you with setting up all the financial stuff, but I've got my day job, and I'm quite happy doing that. but then I just found myself getting more and more involved, and it was like a fun sort of project to kind of see happen. And of course, it had like all the madness that goes with opening a restaurant. But yeah, eventually, I found myself almost working two full-time jobs between setting up the restaurant and this and my actual day job. That I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sort of I can't do this. I'm gonna like burn out before we've even begun. And so I decided that, what's the worst thing? I've spent 9 years in tax. I said that, what's the worst thing if I take a year out, try this out, and, and see where it goes. And I know that, I had enough sort of, I think, goodwill with my employers to know that, if that all came like crashing down like hard and heavy, then yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. So I felt like I had this. So, me being like I said, me being the risk averse person, I had this backup plan if things didn't work out. And so it turned out to be a bit of a long sabbatical because it's been 10 years since we opened.
That's a fantastic journey. That's a fantastic journey. So my quick question: the name, the table. Tell me a little bit about how did that come about?
Yeah, that was my like only contribution, I think, to the setting up of the restaurant. No, so we actually no, seriously, I when I lived in London, very close to my office, there was this lovely coffee shop called the Monmouth Coffee House, and they had this beautiful big community table where with just one big pot of sugar in the middle, and it just had this great vibe because people would just be sitting around, strangers sitting around it, and it just had this like amazing energy. And so when we came to doing this, I said to Jay, I was like, look, you do whatever you want. You've got your inspiration from San Francisco or whatever it is. I just think that we need to have a community table in there because that was something I loved, and I felt that it wasn't there in Bombay. And people like sitting at their sort of own tables, and especially in the Western sort of dining format. And so I was like, listen, whatever you do, whatever you want, but like have a community table in there. I think that'll be really amazing. And so we did put one, and then I was like, I really think that um, this is something really unique about this space. I mean, we're talking about more than 10 years ago when the idea of like community dining wasn't so big, and so then yeah, and just kind of that kind of became for me like something I got I guess fixated on, and we decided to call it the table.
Fantastic. So having your husband as your co-founder, how is that work out in life? How is the ups and downs? How do you keep personal, professional separate? How does that work?
Oh, I don't know how it works, honestly. And I'm really surprised that we're still married. We actually got married a month before the restaurant opened. So we celebrated 10 years of the table and 10 years of us, in December last year. And I mean, honestly, Ashwin, I don't think there's any magic formula. I think that it takes a lot of hard work because you have to really try hard not to bring work home and take home to work, and it is very, very difficult to do that. And I mean, I think we've kind of one of the things that we did from the get-go, again, just figuring this out for ourselves, was that we divided our responsibilities right in the beginning and said, look, these are your areas of, this is your domain, this is mine. Obviously things like marketing, finance, that kind of thing was what I decided to take on. And we always agreed that, we would bounce things off each other, but when it came to what was under sort of my area of responsibility, the last, the last call would be mine. And I think that's worked for us for the most part. On the flip side of all this sort of difficulty of working together is the fact that we trust each other implicitly just by virtue of being married, and I think that that is something that is so integral to a business when you have a partner, is that you really have to trust each other. And we both have, at the end of the day, the same goal, the same vision. We might have different sort of routes to getting there, and where we sometimes have disagreements. But I think that because we have that, that sort of that joint, vision and goal. There's just that you're acting in each other's best interest. So of course there'll be blips here and there, but it makes a big difference to how we're able to make decisions and move forward.
Fantastic. So, you have a daughter, am I right? 8-year-old daughter. So is she excited about the restaurant? Does she play a role in any of this? Does she come and spend time there?
I mean, I'll be honest. So she's 8, like you said, and so when I had her, I took a couple of months off. Obviously to give birth and just get used to that idea. And but it's not like the business was on hold, so I really kind of went back to work very quickly. A couple of months after giving birth, and she just became naturally a part of coming to work. So she's kind of been coming to my office from pretty much the time she was born, and so she's sort of grown up in that environment. And I think the great thing is she's become like a mini foodie herself. So she'll eat everything we're eating, and she's becoming quite discerning in her own little cheeky way.
So kids nowadays have such a knack of learning things, and they create their own personalities. Like I have a 6-year-old daughter. If I make her breakfast, she will arrange her breakfast in a particular way. Like I think she probably doesn't know what Instagram is, but she's probably living an Instagram life. Like she's like, can you take a picture of this? Can you please put it on the family group? Show it to the grandparents. Like, see what I've done. Like, and they're so expressive. I mean, I don't remember at that age, being that expressive and giving so much thought. It was more, oh, let's just go play and do our own thing. But kids nowadays are fascinating. We have all been through a pandemic. The last 12 months, 14 months have been pretty chaotic. What is one of the toughest decisions you had to take, as a business owner in the last, let's say, 14 months?
I think the list is long, but if I had to kind of pick one thing, so we actually opened our second restaurant, or rather reopened our second restaurant 10 days before we closed it. And yeah, so we had an Asian, Southeast Asian restaurant called Misty, which we'd opened back in 2018. And it wasn't quite going as we'd sort of planned. So about 15 months later, we closed it and decided to pivot as a Cantonese restaurant. And the doors to that opened on the 7th of March and then closed on the 17th of March. Yeah. And I think, uh, so obviously, so our chefs actually were from Singapore and Malaysia, and they haven't been able to come back into the country since then. Partly, obviously there's visa restrictions, but also, they have their own concerns with coming into India and then, not being able to go back or whatever. And so we had to take a really tough decision to basically, after months of working really hard on it, obviously spending a lot of money, time, energy, everything, take a decision to basically shelve that brand. And, so that's been tough. But I think that a lot of the decisions that we've made were almost something that we didn't have that much choice in, if you think about it. If I really sort of think about it, the circumstances kind of dictated a lot of what we did. So, whether it was a good decision or a sort of slightly painful decision, it was what there wasn't that much choice. So I think that if I really think about, I'd like to think that in the last year and a half, we've made a lot of good decisions, which have like, sort of positively helped us get through this time. And the things that we haven't been able to do, we've just been like, okay, so what's the good thing that we can do?
So, Gauri, tell me about a funny experience that you had at the table. Like something that happened which was unusual, something a guest did, or something somebody internally did that is something that is can laugh at, and now when you look back at it, it's something that was hilarious. Anything you can think of?
So, Ashwin, there's two types of funny, right? There's funny where it wasn't funny when it happened, but now we laugh about it. And then there's funny while it's happening. And I can think a lot more of the incidents in the former type where, the restaurant is just that nature of business where there's a lot of disasters. It's a bag full of disasters. But no, there was, I'll tell you funny, or it was for me. We have, we tend to get a lot of like celebrities into the restaurant. And of course, there's always excitement around that. And we used to have an expat chef, right? So this was around the time, I don't know if you remember, the song Sheila Ki Javani had just happened. And of course, it was all the rage, one of the biggest hits. And then in walks in Katrina Kaif, right? Like all dressed up. She'd obviously come from some event and she was completely dressed up like she just walked off a movie set. And literally, and my husband was sitting there having a glass of wine with me, and then suddenly he just like jumps up and runs into the kitchen going, oh my god, Sheila's here. And because that was the only way our expat chef was going to know who he was talking about. And literally like all the boys in the kitchen like had their head peeping out of the kitchen door. And that was as close as they got to their fantasizing about making their fantasy of Sheila a reality. But no, so it's funny. Like, there's been the other time we had someone who was like, really, obviously again a foreigner, like really like very orange and fake tanned and, clearly with a toy boy. And I was like, okay, like, hey, like no judgment here. And then the next day it turned out that that was Calvin Klein who was in the restaurant. And yeah, and I was just like, what? That was him sitting there, and I was sitting and making fun instead of going and like, sort of touching his feet, kind of thing. So anyway, it's just been there've been a fair share of. It usually involves a celebrity, so yeah. But yeah, no, it's look, it's 10 years. There's so many memories, good, bad, ugly, everything. And yeah, so wouldn't change it for anything.
Fantastic. I think that's the beauty of this, right? The way a restaurant business allows you to meet so many different people from different walks of life, right? You'll have foreigners, and I think your location also is something that you can get foreigners right outside your door. I remember I'd taken one of my clients, she had come from US, and I'd taken to see Gateway of India, and she was a platinum blonde. Right. And there's this guy who came saying, can I take a picture with you? This teenage kid. And I said, no, no, no. And then one more guy came, and then finally this one girl came, small little, like, 10-year-old girl. Can I take a picture with you, ma'am? And the guide or whatever was with us saying, no, 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 don't allow. And this lady was melting. She's like, oh, poor girl, yeah, let her take a picture. So this girl takes a picture, and then her family comes. So the family wants to take a picture with my guest. And the father takes his son's hand and puts it over her shoulder. And I'm like trying to stop all this from happening. She's like, it's okay, it's a kid. When that happens, another 10 guys, girls, boys of all ages are kind of pouring in to take photos with her. There was a point in time, me and my business partner were bodyguards around her, pushing people away. The guide went to call a cop. A cop gets involved. It was hilarious, and I was feeling bad for her, thinking she's feeling assaulted. So when we, got into the car, finally I said, hey Amanda, I'm so sorry that happened. She's like, are you kidding me? That's the best experience in my life. I felt like a celebrity. I felt like a rock star. Right. So that was just hilarious. I've had a lot of fun experience in South Bombay, and yeah, celebrities. It always is a fun thing to, it's always been fun. Right. So the next thing I want to jump into is marketing has always been a very crucial part of any business. Right. So how has the table gone around doing marketing?
There's again, I don't think there's any science to it, and of course, I don't have a sort of formal background in marketing, but I think there's a couple of things that I've learned over the years. One is there's no such thing as word of mouth, okay? No amount of money can buy that, and that's really the best form of marketing you could ever ask for, right? But that sort of boils down to having a great product because that's what that's how word of mouth really gets around. And I think that that's something that we learned very early on, that just focus on the product and the sort of the word will get out. But in terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis, I think another thing I learned was that, no one can speak about your product as well as you. And for that reason, we've always done our marketing in-house. We've never had an agency or, outsourced it, because we just feel like, nobody can ever talk about it as authentically and sincerely and passionately as you can. So, yeah, I mean, and then beyond that, honestly, we've used all the same tips and tricks that everybody else does when it comes to, social media or, and the other thing is, I think I've kind of become synonymous with the brand and the face of the brand. And so, I mean, I've sort of, become a spokesperson for it. And of course, we talk about it, as much as we can. And really, that's what it is. But the fundamental thing is to have a great product. That's one thing that I've learned, and I've learned that the hard way as well with our restaurant that didn't sort of do as well as some of our other brands, and that's where I learned that it doesn't matter how much PR and marketing you do, it all boils down fundamentally to having a great product.
Fantastic. So, what are your plans for the future? Anything new that is coming up anytime soon? Anything that you can share?
So, like I mentioned earlier, we had this restaurant, the Cantonese restaurant, May 13, which had all of sort of 10 days of life. But we haven't quite given up on that space, and we are planning, you know, that restaurant 3.0, I guess. And so, yeah, we'll hopefully be able to open the doors next month, assuming restaurants can still be open and, have people dine in. And yeah, so I'm excited about that, but more about it soon. Yeah.
Sounds like it's fantastic. So, what are some of the mistakes you wish you could have avoided, in your journey? Now that you look back at it.
Um, so again, I come back to the experience of closing the first avatar of that space, and I I've stopped looking at them as mistakes, I really I think of them as lessons, and I feel that if I hadn't had them, I wouldn't know as much as I do today, because a lot of what we did, especially in the first few years, was just going by our gut instinct. And of course, that comes at a price because you're learning on the job. Since neither of us had, any hospitality background, we pretty much learned everything on the job. And of course, so that's a more costly way of learning about the industry. And you can call it mistakes, or you can just be like, well, that's part and parcel of venturing into a new business. But some of the things which haven't quite gone to plan, like I said, I don't think it's mistakes. I think it's just it's kind of reinforced what we did do right and didn't do this time round. And therefore what we did the first time round was actually the way to do it. And so it just kind of reinforced what works and doesn't work, as opposed to it being something that we regret. And yeah, I mean, I feel like you have to have those um, ups and downs to kind of, keep you grounded and on track. So, but yeah, no, I mean, look, we're making them all the time, and we're learning all the time, because it's such a dynamic industry to be a part of, and you have to kind of be on your toes. So, but I don't see it as um, as a mistake or a regret necessarily. I just
So something that I have seen and I have personally believed in for a long time has been the fact that you either earn or you learn, right? So you never lose. You either you win or you learn. You don't lose. So if you don't lose the lesson in a mistake you've made, you've actually not lost, right? You actually won both ways. You've kind of done something, right?
But I have to say that it took me a while to get my head around that. Like, I mean, there's a lot of pride and ego that goes with this, very like public business. And and I think that you have to, the success is as public as the failure. And I think that's been one of my greatest, like, sort of I think lessons is just learning how to kind of, take it in your stride and move forward, when things don't go as planned.
So, Gauri, as an entrepreneur, there are a lot of hats you have to wear through the day and do multiple things. So, what does a typical day look like for you?
What does it, is there such a thing as a typical day? I love to have a typical day because then I would know what to expect. Alas, it's not quite like that. Um, and, I think as we've grown our brands over the years, and they're all so different, right? We have 5 brands, not counting the new project that we're working on. So if I include that, 6 brands, and they're all so different, and they all demand our time and attention in different ways. And throw in my 8 eight going on 18-year-old. And of course, yeah, like, just it's really, and then of course, much to my husband's angst, a podcast thrown in for good measure. So it's like there just can't be enough hours in the day, and there's absolutely nothing typical about it, nothing predictable about it, and yeah, you just kind of have this ongoing, getting longer and longer checklist or list of things to do that you just keep working your way through. And yeah, that's pretty much what my day looks like, with a little bit of exercise thrown in when I'm for good measure.
That's fantastic. So, what are the 3 skills do you think that every food entrepreneur should have?
Um, okay, so one thing is perseverance. Okay, so this is an industry where there's no such thing as a quick result. It's a very, like, long, arduous journey, and you really have to be committed to it, and be sort of willing to ride out that journey. And if you do, you will see the fruits of your labor, but it'll just take a little longer. So perseverance is one thing. The second thing I would say is that, when it comes to food, is no compromise, right, on quality. And it's very easy in this business. It's a very capital intense business. It's a very, it is sort of, it is a sort of expensive business to get into. And um, and you often kind of, it's one of those things that people get into with a lot of excitement and energy and passion, and you're convinced that your product is great, it's going to work, it's going to sort of, it's the best that's available, etc. And you often, that optimism often makes you be more optimistic than conservative. And what happens is that you don't plan enough runway for all the things that can and will go wrong, for no fault of your own, but that will happen. And so there's this tendency to then start cutting corners when you kind of hit financial roadblocks. And I've seen this with all our businesses, right? So again, I would say that, the people almost expect that a restaurant starts off, or even like a delivery business starts off really well, and you have sort of, 6 great months, and then you start going downhill because either cost pressures or, whatever, financial pressures. And that's what I would sort of, advise people, is that don't let that happen. You're better off, like, closing your business than starting to compromise on quality, because of financial pressure. So, that would be my second thing, is that you really have to be, believe in your product, and sort of, stick to your standards. Um, and the third thing I would say is that just be ready to work bloody hard. It's I mean, I'm sure this is with any business, but this specifically, the restaurant and delivery business is a 24/7 kind of business. You don't be like, oh, I'll have my weekends off. In fact, like, you'll definitely not have your weekends off, and you'll be working, hardest when everyone else is out having fun. And you better be, goddamn ready to work 24/7, 365 days of the year. And I'll tell you, like, in my experience, and I realized this even more during the lockdown, because of course we've been on vacations and, taken time off from, like, physically going to work, but you're never, like, really switched off. And the first time that ever happened was those 10 days when we closed the restaurant, when we completely closed all our businesses down and before reopening for deliveries again. And those 10 days, when there was like nothing happening, was the first time my brain actually, like, was just silent. Like, my mind was silent, my work brain switched off, and it was the best feeling. And I hadn't had that for 10 years. And I really appreciated that like nothing. I mean, it was, and it just sort of reminded me how much of a hamster I felt like for the last 10 years. But that's the other thing, that, if someone had kind of told me that, I might have been a little more prepared for it than, just finding out the hard way. So yeah, that's I guess my three insights.
Last couple of questions before we go on to a rapid fire round. I'm going doing the whole Karan with Johar thing, right? Did I say Karan with Johar? That didn't come out. Right. So what I was saying is, who has been your greatest inspiration?
I don't think there's one person. I think different people have inspired me for different things. And if I think about it from our industry specifically, I've heard and read so much about the amazing duo behind a restaurant called 11 Madison Park in New York. And, just how beautifully choreographed the experiences for diners, both between front of house and back of house, the kitchen. And it's something that I aspire to achieve at the table. So I really that's something I sort of I would consider to be one of my. I mean, of course, the duo behind the restaurant have now split up and all of that, but the what they once had is definitely very inspiring. And then there's another sort of restaurateur, Danny Meyer, who I don't know if you know the Shake Shack, and sort of that's one of his most popular brands. And now, having been in the delivery business, I sort of feel like that's incredible to have a product that is so consistently good everywhere you go, anywhere in the world that you have it. And to achieve that is just something that I really admire, because of course McDonald's does that as well, but it's quite not quite the same thing. So I think these two are people. And he's written this amazing book called Setting the Table, which is something I read before getting into the business, and still got into the business, which is kind of crazy after the stories you read. But yeah, these are two people that I really kind of think of.
So it's always good to have mentors, in the line of any line of work that you're in. I think that's something I learned earlier on, and most of the people I've spoken to actually have had great mentors in their life, great people to look up to. Maybe they've not been be direct mentors, but at least role models. But then having mentors, actually people who go out of the way to help you, right? So that has been priceless for me. So today I have 8 mentors for different parts of life, but that has really helped me hone down my skills, get so much wisdom in so little time and without making mistakes. And I make a lot of mistakes. I would have made, I think, 10 times more if I didn't have mentors, right? So I think having those inspirations and mentors are absolutely critical. Okay, so we're going to come to the last segment of this chat show, which is going to be, it's a quick rapid fire round, right? And it's easy stuff. Don't worry, nothing too embarrassing, right? So, okay, what's your favorite book? Let's start from there.
Oh, my favorite book. I have a lot. One of them I would say, oh God, it's like I'm reading Zero to One right now, which I think is very interesting about that, that initial time that you actually sort of hone in on an idea. And that's the critical part of your business is sort of defining that. So I'm finding it really interesting to read. I don't know if it's my favorite book yet, but definitely one I'm enjoying.
Uh, what's your most used app?
Instagram or WhatsApp, actually. I think my business would not function and I would not be able to live between Alibag and Bombay without WhatsApp. So I run my whole business on WhatsApp.
So, what's your favorite cuisine?
So I get asked this a lot, and my answer is always that it depends on my mood. But for date night, which is what I'm going to go with, it's Japanese. That's absolute favorite.
That's my favorite too. Right? Okay. So, what's your hidden talent that most people are unaware of?
Oh my God, I don't have any hidden talent.
Your word, something that most people don't know that you're good at.
Math, mental. Listen, I you don't understand. I love math.
As a CA, I think that is something that people would expect you to be good at, I guess.
I know. No, I don't know. A lot of CAs need their calculators and stuff. I love math. Um, and I'm very strange for that reason. So yeah.
So a funny thing is a hidden talent of mine that most people are not aware of. I can make killer breakfast for my daughter and son. I make waffles, I make pancakes, I make eggs, I make a French souffle omelette with cheese and those kind of things. And most people are not aware that I. So that has been my hidden talent, right?
That is definitely not my hidden talent. It's not hidden, seen, nothing. It's just not a talent. I can't cook to save my life.
That's funny coming from a person who runs restaurants. Yes.
I know everyone says that, right? But I'm like, there are people who can do it a lot better than me. I'm just going to leave them to to do their thing.
So give me three adjectives that describe you the best.
A perfection. I don't know if these are good things, but I'm gonna say them anyway. I'm a perfectionist and a lover of food. I don't know if that's an adjective, but I wouldn't say I'm a connoisseur or foodie. I hate those words, but yeah, I'm a sucker for good food is probably one. And what else? Um, I should ask someone else how they describe me, right? I'm probably a control freak. That's probably the third one.
A good one. I think that answer would have come if I asked your husband describe her. Is that the one word you would say control freak?
Yeah, probably. I'm being completely honest here. That's why I said I don't know if these are good things, but yeah.
This is the last one, right? So, what is the one takeaway, the one final takeaway you would ask any entrepreneur to follow? Like the one magic mantra, the one takeaway that you would want food entrepreneurs to carry with.
Quality, quality, quality. Yeah, no, I would say quality, consistency, and persevering. I mean, it's not one, but I think these are like the three pillars of the food business. If one of them kind of falls, then the others kind of go down with that.
Fantastic. Gauri, thank you so much for taking our time and spending this time with us. And it's been fabulous to get to know you. And I've heard so much about the brand. I'd never gotten to know you before. But thank you for taking out the time and spending this time with us. And I'm very sure our audience is going to love hearing the person behind the brand, the journey, and of course, looking forward, dining at the table.
Thank you so much, and yeah, looking forward to having everyone dine at the table very soon again. So
I'm waiting for it to open up. So here's a criminal thing I must confess. I've heard so much about the table I've never visited.
what?
So the day you open, you please
Oh my
message me. I'm going to
God!
come and I want to have. I've heard so much. Like I'm not even joking. I've planned six different meals. All those plans got changed. I don't know how, and I've just not made it to the table yet. And That's on me, and I'm going to correct that now that I know you. You're going to let me know when it opens, and I'm going to be there.
We're gonna correct that very soon. Yeah.
Hey guys, so thank you. That was Gauri Devidayal from the table, and she's a fantastic person and so energetic and so lovely, and was so nice for her to be with us. Watch out for next week for a new episode, and we're going to have somebody new and somebody more exciting and somebody inspiring. Thank you, and have a great day.